The stars looked different from the observation deck of the USS Horizon. Captain Samuel Wright stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as the unknown solar system grew larger on the main display. 50 years had passed since humans developed faster than light travel, and in that time they had explored only a tiny fraction of the galaxy. Today might change everything. "Captain, we're picking up artificial signals from the fourth planet," said Communications Officer Lisa. Young. Her fingers moved quickly across her console. "Definitely not natural. Someone built something out here." Samuel nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and caution. "First contact protocol, everyone. This is what we trained for." The Horizon slowed its approach, broadcasting peace messages on all frequencies as they neared the source of the signals, a small outpost on a rocky, airless world. It wasn't long before they received a response. "Captain," Lisa called out, her voice shaking slightly. "They're answering us, not just signals, actual language translation matrices. They've been studying us." Within hours, the truth became clear. Humanity wasn't discovering alien life. Alien life was finally allowing itself to be discovered. The outpost belonged to something called the Galactic Council, a federation of 17 spacefaring species who had maintained peace for over 2 millennia. They had been watching Earth for decades. 3 weeks later, Admiral Lydia Bell led a proper diplomatic team to meet with council representatives at a specially prepared station in neutral space. Samuel stood beside her as the airlock opened, revealing their first clear view of alien life. The alien delegation consisted of 5 different species. At their head stood a tall, slender being with pale blue skin and 4 arms. Each hand had 7 long fingers. "I am High Counselor Zethkar of the Arxian species," the alien said, its voice coming through translator devices. "We welcome humans to the greater galactic community." Lydia stepped forward, shoulders straight. "Admiral Lydia Bell of Earth. We come seeking friendship and knowledge." The aliens led them to a large meeting room. The discussions began cordially, with exchanges of cultural information and scientific knowledge. But on the 3rd day, the tone changed. "We have concerns about humanity's military capabilities," said a stocky reptilian alien named Grek, representative of the Vordax. "Your species developed from warfare. Your technology advances too quickly. This makes many council members nervous." Lydia frowned. "We come in peace, but we need protection. Space is vast and unknown to us." "To join the council," Zethkar explained, "humans must accept restrictions on expansion and military development. This is for galactic stability." The human delegation exchanged troubled looks. Peter Martinez, their intelligence officer, leaned over to whisper to Lydia, "They're asking us to make ourselves vulnerable. That's not reasonable." Lydia turned back to the council members. "We cannot accept those terms. Earth needs defensive capabilities. We're newcomers to a vast galaxy we know little about." The atmosphere in the room chilled noticeably. Zethkar's upper arms crossed in what they would later learn was a gesture of disapproval. "Your resistance confirms our concerns," said Grek, the Vordax representative. "You fear war so much that you refuse peace terms." Back on their ship that evening, Peter Martinez brought troubling news to the Admiral's quarters. "They've been watching us for over 50 years, he said, placing a data pad on Lydia's desk. "I accessed their database through a security gap. They have a full dossier on Earth, categorizing us as potentially destabilizing to galactic peace." Lydia scrolled through the information, her expression darkening. "They've been monitoring our broadcasts, our wars, our weapons development. They've made judgments without context." "There's more," Peter said. "I intercepted communications between council members. Some species, particularly the Vordax, are pushing to contain what they call the human threat before it grows. They're afraid of us." "Afraid? We've shown no aggression." "It's not what we've done, it's what they think we might do. They see our history of conflict and our rapid technological growth as warning signs." Dr. Olivia Grant, the team's xenolinguist, spent hours reviewing the council's communications and historical records. The next morning, she requested an urgent meeting with Admiral Bell, There's a fundamental miscommunication happening, Olivia explained, pushing her glasses up her nose. What we see as prudent caution, they interpret as aggressive paranoia. The council species have maintained peace for so long that they view any military preparation as intent to use it. Can you clarify this to them? Lydia asked. I'm trying, but there are deeper cultural barriers. The council operates on absolute consensus and trust. Our insistence on self-defense signals to them that we don't trust their protection. Before they could develop a new diplomatic approach, news arrived that the council had called an emergency session, without human representation. Samuel Wright stood on the bridge of the horizon, watching the council ships through the view screen. More had arrived in the past hours, taking positions that made him increasingly uncomfortable. They're creating a blockade formation, noted his tactical officer, Gary Brooks. Not overtly hostile, but definitely strategic. A communication alert sounded. Zethkar's blue face appeared on the main screen. Captain Wright, the council has reached a decision regarding humanity, the alien said formally. Until humans demonstrate peaceful intentions, a quarantine zone will be established around human space. No human vessels will be permitted beyond your current explored regions. Samuel kept his voice steady despite his rising anger. On what grounds? Your species' fear of war makes you dangerous. You refuse reasonable security measures while demanding military freedom. The Council cannot risk allowing such an unstable, element-free access to the galaxy. After the communication ended, Samuel turned to his crew. Send word to Earth. The diplomatic mission has failed. On Earth, the United Nations Security Council met in emergency session. President Alan Pierce addressed the gathered representatives. The Galactic Council has imposed restrictions on human movement in space, citing our fear of war as justification, he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. They misunderstand our caution for aggression, our desire for self-protection, as paranoia. Admiral Bell, who had returned to Earth, stood to speak. They've been watching us for decades, judging us by their standards without understanding our context. What they don't realize is that humans prepare for war precisely because we know its cost. What are our options? Asked the representative. From India, Peter Martinez displayed intercepted council communications. Several council species are pushing for stronger action against us. They see us as a future threat that needs to be contained now. But there are divisions among them. Not all agree with this approach. Dr. Olivia Grant stepped forward. We need to keep trying to communicate. There's a cultural gap here that can be bridged with time and effort. A tense silence filled the room. Finally, President Pierce spoke. We will continue diplomatic efforts, but we must also prepare for the possibility that diplomacy fails. I am authorizing increased production of defensive systems for our colonies and ships. We will not appear weak before a council that already fears our strength. As the meeting adjourned, Olivia caught up with Admiral Bell in the hallway. Admiral, I'm worried. We're heading down a dangerous path. Both sides are misreading each other's intentions. Lydia looked tired. I know, Doctor. But what choice do we have? They claim we fear war while threatening us with containment. We can't surrender our security based on their misperceptions, and they won't change their position because our behavior confirms their fears, Olivia said quietly. It's a perfect trap. Above Earth, Council observer ships maintained their distant watch, their presence a constant reminder of the fragile standoff. Neither side wanted war, yet both were preparing for it, each believing the other was the aggressor. The stars looked different now to everyone who gazed up at them. No longer were they full of wonder and possibility. Now they held uncertainty and threat. A clock was ticking down, though none could say how much time remained before misunderstanding turned to conflict. 6 months passed under the tense standoff. Earth's colonies prepared defenses while diplomats tried to reopen meaningful talks with the Galactic Council. On the edge of human space, the Armstrong Research Station orbited a yellow star, its 47. Scientists studying stellar phenomena far from the political tensions. Dr. Eric Miller stood at the main viewport, watching the star's surface bubble with activity. "We're getting amazing data on solar flares today," he told his colleague, Dr. Karen Patel. "This could help us improve shield technology for the colonies." Karen smiled. "At least our work is peaceful. Maybe when the council sees what we're actually doing out here, they'll—" The station shook violently. Warning alarms blared throughout the complex. What was that? Eric grabbed a console to steady himself. The station's director, Dr. Ronald White, rushed into the observation deck. "We're under attack. 3 ships just dropped out of FTL and opened fire without warning." "Attack? That's impossible," Karen said. "We're a civilian research station." Another hit rocked the station. Power failed across multiple sections. "Emergency." Lights bathed the deck in red. "All personnel to escape pods," Ronald shouted into his communicator. "This is not a drill. Evacuate now." Only 15 of the 47 scientists made it to escape pods before the station broke apart. From their small craft, the survivors watched in horror as sleek angular ships, clearly of Vordax design, finished destroying the helpless station. On Earth, President Alan Pierce received the news in the White House Situation Room. His face grew hard as he watched the footage transmitted by the escape pods before they were rescued by a human patrol ship. 32 civilian researchers dead, he said quietly. Scientists studying a star. Not weapons, not military. The Vordax claim it was a weapons development facility. Admiral Lydia Bell stood at his side. "It's a deliberate provocation, sir. They want us to respond with full force. And give them the excuse they need to launch a wider attack," Pierce nodded. "What are our options?" "We can secure our border without attacking Council territories," Lydia suggested. "Show strength without aggression." The president looked around the room at his security advisors. "Do it. Send the Third Fleet to secure our border systems. But I want explicit orders. No attacks on Council territories unless fired upon." Captain Nicole Reyes stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant, the flagship of the human defensive deployment. A dozen ships held position along the invisible line that marked the edge of human space. "Holding position, Captain," reported her navigator, Paul Jenkins. "Council ships are maintaining distance but watching us." Nicole nodded. "Keep all weapon systems on standby, but passive. We're here to protect, not provoke." "Captain," her communications officer called out. "Message from Ambassador Holloway. The emergency council session is beginning." Ambassador Frank Holloway faced the assembled Galactic Council, his gray suit, a stark contrast to the colorful and varied dress of the alien representatives. He held up a data crystal. "This contains complete records from the Armstrong Research Station," he said firmly. "Every project, every study, every communication. It proves beyond question that the station was engaged solely in civilian scientific research. There were no weapons, no military personnel." High Counselor Zethkar accepted the crystal with one of his 4 hands. "The Council will review this evidence." The Vordax representative, Grek, made a harsh clicking sound. "Humans disguise military, research as civilian work. We have received intelligence that the station was developing weapons technology." "That is simply not true," Frank replied. "Where did this intelligence come from? Who provided it?" Grek did not answer, but his scales rippled in what humans had learned was a sign of agitation. An elderly alien with translucent skin rose from his seat. "I am Jexnar of the Solari. I have studied Earth's broadcasts and literature for many cycles. While humans have a complicated history, they also show remarkable capacity for cooperation and ethical growth." Several council members shifted uncomfortably as Jexnar continued. "The attack on a research station violates our own principles. We should investigate fully before taking further action." Grek and representatives from 2 other species, the resource-rich Krell and the technologically advanced Mitrax, stood in protest. "The Solari are naive," Grek announced. "Humans must be contained before they become too powerful. Their history proves their violent nature." As the council chamber erupted in argument, Frank watched carefully. The council was splitting into factions. This could be good or very, very bad. Chief Engineer Diana Cooper loved puzzles. Right now, the biggest puzzle was why the Vordax had attacked a harmless research station. She worked in a secure lab on Earth's moon, analyzing debris recovered from the Armstrong station. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered, examining a piece of metal under a microscope. "This fragment has traces of weapons fire, but not from any Vordax weapon we've documented." A soft voice spoke from behind her. "Because it is not Vordax technology. It is Metrax." Diana spun around to face a slender alien with 6 eyes arranged in a circle around its head. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" "I am Threll, scientific advisor to the Metrax delegation, and I came because the truth matters." The alien moved closer. "The attack on your station was not what it seems. Look at this." Threll handed her a small device. When activated, it showed a recording of a meeting between Vordax, Krell, and Metrax officials. "We need to accelerate the timetable," a Krell representative was saying. "Humans are gaining sympathy among the neutral council members." "The research station is an ideal target," replied a Vordax. "Remote enough that we control the narrative. Our ships will use modified weapons, untraceable to us." Diana looked up from the recording. "This is a false flag operation. You're framing humanity to start a war, not me," Threll said quickly. "I am risking everything to show you this. Many of us do not support the hardliners, but they have seized control of key positions. We need to get this to Earth's government immediately," Diana said. "Yes, but carefully." "There are—" Threll suddenly stiffened, then collapsed to the floor. A thin dart protruded from his neck. Diana dove behind a lab table as another dart whizzed past her head. She crawled quickly to the emergency alarm and slammed her hand against it. Security would come, but would they arrive in time? Diana managed to escape with the evidence, but just barely. Her shuttle took fire as it fled the moon base, and 2 security officers died protecting her. When she finally reached Earth, she went directly to the president's office. Pierce reviewed the recording, his face grim. "This confirms what we suspected, but it may be too late." On the screen behind him, an emergency broadcast showed Council ships moving into attack formation near several human colonies. The news anchor's voice was tense. "Breaking news. The Galactic Council has formally declared humanity a Grade 1 threat to galactic stability and authorized military action to neutralize human expansion capabilities." Admiral Bell, who had been called to the emergency meeting, shook her head. "They're not just targeting our military assets. Those formations are designed for planetary assault." "How many civilian casualties are we looking at?" Pierce asked quietly. "If they hit all targets simultaneously?" "Millions, sir. Maybe tens of millions." Pierce closed his eyes briefly, then straightened his shoulders. "Send the order. All fleets to defensive positions. Civilian evacuations to begin immediately on border colonies." He turned to Diana. "Get that evidence to our ambassadors who are still in council space. Maybe some of the neutral species will listen." "It may not matter now," Lydia said softly. "The Vordax and their allies have what they wanted." Outside the window, the sky above Washington, D.C. was clear and blue. People walked the streets below, unaware that far above their world, the first shots of an interstellar war were about to be fired. "They claimed we feared war," President Pierce said, watching a tactical display as council ships accelerated toward human space. "They were right. We do fear it. We know its cost better than they imagine. And now they're going to learn why that fear was justified." The sky over Chicago burned. From his position in the damaged orbital defense platform, Colonel Richard Hayes watched as council ships rained destruction on the city below. Similar attacks were happening in Beijing, London, Cairo, and dozens of other major population centers across Earth. The initial assault had been devastating. "Status report," Richard called out, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. Lieutenant Amy Foster looked up from her console, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. "We've lost 30% of orbital defenses. Enemy ships are targeting major cities and military bases, civilian casualties." She paused, swallowing hard. "In the millions already, sir." Richard nodded grimly. "What about our counterattack?" Fleet elements are engaging, but we're outmatched, sir. Their technology is superior, and they outnumber us 3-1. The command center shook as another blast hit nearby. Warning lights flashed across every console. Sir, Amy said urgently, we can't hold this position much longer. Richard made his decision. Initiate Operation Scattered Shield. We need to buy time for the ground evacuations. The remaining orbital platforms began a desperate defense strategy, sacrificing themselves to protect evacuation corridors. It wouldn't stop the invasion, but it might save millions of lives. In the Council flagship, Admiral Vex of the Vordax watched the battle with satisfaction. The humans are falling faster than predicted, he told his officers. Their defense capabilities are impressive for such a young species, but ultimately inadequate. His tactical officer, a Krell named Draz, nodded in agreement. Our models predict complete submission within 2 standard weeks. Their orbital defenses are failing, and our ground forces are securing key installations. Have they requested surrender terms? Vex asked. No, Admiral. In fact, their communications show no central discussion of surrender at all. Vex frowned. Curious. Perhaps their command structure has collapsed more quickly than anticipated. A junior officer approached with a report. Admiral, we're seeing unusual movement patterns from human survivors. Instead of fleeing randomly, they appear to be organizing. Show me, Vex commanded. The display showed human civilians moving in coordinated groups, gathering supplies and establishing defensive positions in areas the Council forces hadn't yet reached. Continue the assault, Vex ordered. They will break soon enough. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility unknown to the Council attackers, Dr. William Clark worked frantically. Around him, dozens of scientists and engineers examined captured alien technology. We've identified the frequency patterns in their shield technology, announced Dr. Sofia Rodriguez, pushing aside a strand of gray hair. It's remarkably similar to theoretical models we developed 5 years ago but couldn't implement. William looked up from the Mitrax weapon component he was studying. Can we adapt it to our systems? With modifications, yes. Their power distribution is more efficient than ours, but we understand the principles. The door to the lab slid open. General Jack Owens, Earth Defense Force, strode in. His uniform was dusty, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. Please tell me you have something, Doctor, he said without preamble. We've lost the orbital platforms. Ground forces are holding key areas but can't maintain position indefinitely. William gestured to the various workstations around the lab. We're making progress. The Council made a critical mistake in their attack strategy. They've given us access to their technology. Can you weaponize it? Better, William said. We can adapt and improve it. Humans have been theorizing about this technology for decades. We just lacked certain key components. Now we have working examples. How long? Sophia stepped forward. 72 hours for the first prototypes. Maybe a week for limited production. The planet may not have a week, Jack said grimly. Then we'll have to work faster, William replied. Major Grace Sullivan led her squad through the ruins of what had once been San Francisco. Her mission was simple but dangerous. Raid a Council supply depot that had been established in the financial district. Remember, she told her soldiers over the encrypted comm, we need those power cells intact. No explosives, unless absolutely necessary. The 12 soldiers moved silently through the destroyed streets. They had studied Council patrol patterns for 3 days, identifying a vulnerability in their security rotation. 6 guards at the main entrance, reported Sergeant Carl Watson from his observation point. Standard Vordax configuration. 4 on duty, 2 in reserve. Grace checked her weapon, a conventional rifle modified with experimental technology from Dr. Clark's team. Team 1, create the diversion. Team 2, with me. The diversion, a series of small electromagnetic pulses, designed to mimic equipment failures, drew 4 guards away from their posts. Grace and 5 soldiers approached from the opposite side. Now, she whispered. They fired simultaneously. The modified weapons punched through the Vordax armor that had previously been impenetrable to human firearms. Both guards fell without, raising an alarm. Inside the depot, Grace's team moved efficiently, collecting power cells, weapon components, and, most valuable of all, a data core from the depot's command center. "Major," Carl called quietly. "Reinforcements approaching." 2 minutes out. "We have what we need," Grace replied. "Withdraw to extraction point." As they fled through the ruined city, Grace allowed herself a small smile. The Council forces hadn't expected this kind of coordinated resistance. They had expected humanity to break under the initial assault. They were wrong. Captain Kevin Howard studied the tactical displays on the bridge of the USS Defiant. His ship was one of the few that had survived the initial attack, hiding in the asteroid belt of the solar system. "Their fleet movements make no sense," he muttered. His executive officer, Sarah Ward, looked up from her own analysis. "Sir? Look at this." Kevin pointed to the display. "Their ships maintain perfect formation even when it's tactically disadvantageous. They follow predictable patterns. It's like they've never fought a real war before." Sarah considered this. The Council has maintained peace for 2,000 years. Maybe they haven't. Kevin's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "That's it. They have superior technology, but they lack adaptive tactics. They're fighting according to textbook maneuvers." He turned to his communications officer. "Get me Earth Command encrypted channel. I think I've found a weakness we can exploit." In the ruins of Portland, former police officer Daniel Moore led a group of 300 civilians. They had established a hidden community in the city's underground infrastructure, emerging only to gather supplies and conduct hit-and-run attacks against Council occupation forces. "The aliens expect us to surrender or hide," he told the group, gathered around him. "They don't understand humans." An older woman named Ruth Adams spoke up. "My grandson says they've set up a processing center at the convention center, forcing people to register for resettlement." Daniel nodded. "We've seen the same in other cities. Anyone who registers disappears." He turned to his lieutenant, a former construction worker named Steve Garcia. "What about those subways we mapped?" 3 access points to the convention center, lightly guarded because they don't think anyone would attack directly. "That's exactly why we will," Daniel said. "Not to destroy, to rescue. Those are our people in there." 1 month into the war, Admiral Vex faced the Council representatives via holographic communication. The meeting was not going well. "The human resistance continues to strengthen," complained the Matrax representative. "Our casualties increase daily. This was supposed to be a swift pacification. They adapt to our tactics with unexpected speed," Vex admitted reluctantly. "And they're beginning to use our own technology against us." "Worse," added a Krell commander. 4 of our supply depots have been raided in the past week. Humans are capturing our equipment and repurposing it." An Arxian counselor's image flickered as she spoke. "This campaign was presented to us as a necessary security action. Instead, we find ourselves in a prolonged conflict with mounting casualties on both sides." "The humans will break," Vex insisted. "They must." The Arxian's 4 hands made a complex gesture of disagreement. "The Arxian hegemony is withdrawing from this conflict. We cannot support actions that increasingly appear to be driven by Vordak's expansionism rather than genuine security concerns." One by one, 3 other species announced similar withdrawals, leaving only the Vordaks, Krell, and Metrax committed to the war. After the transmission ended, Vex turned to his officers. "Increase the intensity of orbital bombardments. If we can't defeat them quickly, we'll make their planet uninhabitable." His second-in-command looked troubled. "Admiral, that would violate Council war protocols." "The Council is fracturing," Vex snarled. "We will do what is necessary to win. The humans must not be allowed to threaten our dominance." What the Admiral didn't understand, what none of the Council species had predicted, was that humanity wasn't fighting just for survival. With each passing day, each battle, each loss and victory, humans were learning, adapting, and growing stronger. The very war meant to end, the human threat was transforming humanity into exactly what the Council had feared most. 2 years had passed since the Council's first attack on Earth. The war had transformed both sides in ways no one could have predicted. General Stephanie Powell stood on the bridge of the Earth battleship Resilience, watching the tactical display, as human forces pushed back the remaining Council fleets from the Proxima Centauri colony. "Status report," she called out to her officers. Colonel Andy Rivera looked up from his console. "Vordax forces are retreating across all fronts, General. We've secured the colony and orbital stations." Stephanie nodded. Humanity had reclaimed most of its territory over the past 8 months. What had begun as a desperate struggle for survival had turned into a stunning reversal. "What about the civilian population?" she asked. 90% accounted for," replied Communications Officer Linda Chen. "Most were hidden in the underground shelters we built after the first attacks." Stephanie allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had learned quickly from its early losses. When the Council first attacked Earth, millions had died. Now, human colonies were prepared with evacuation plans and hidden shelters. "General," Andy said urgently, "long-range sensors are detecting a large Vordax command vessel moving into the system." "Defensive positions," Stephanie ordered, "but hold fire unless they attack first." The massive Vordax ship appeared on their screens. Unlike previous encounters, it was moving slowly and broadcasting on open frequencies. "They're sending a message," Linda reported. "Text only. It says, 'Request parley under flag of truce.'" Stephanie raised an eyebrow. "Interesting timing. They wait until we've pushed them back to talk?" She considered for a moment. "Respond that we accept, but they must come to us. I'm not boarding their vessel, Admiral." Vex of the Vordax looked old and tired as he was escorted onto the Resilience. His once bright scales had dulled, and he moved with the stiffness of someone who had been injured multiple times. In the ship's conference room, he faced General Powell across a simple metal table. "You have fought well," Vex said without preamble. "Better than we anticipated." "We didn't want this war," Stephanie replied evenly. "Your council started it based on false assumptions." Vex's scales rippled in what humans now recognized as a sign of discomfort. "Perhaps. But now I come with practical matters to discuss. The Krell have abandoned our alliance. Only the Vordax and a fraction of the Metrax continue to fight. We noticed," Stephanie said dryly. "What do you want, Admiral?" "Terms," he said simply. "The war has cost us too much. Even if we deployed our remaining forces in a final offensive, your adaptation rate would likely counter our advantage within weeks." Stephanie leaned forward. "You mean your technology isn't helping anymore because we've learned how to match it?" "Yes," Vex admitted. "You did what we thought impossible. You closed a 2,000-year technology gap in 2 years." While the Vordax sought terms, a separate operation was underway. General Powell had authorized a bold mission, the capture of the Vordax command vessel while its admiral was engaged in negotiations. Major Grace Sullivan, now a seasoned veteran of the war, led the operation. Her team of 20 elite soldiers approached the Vordax ship in a captured Metrax shuttle. "Maintain calm silence," she told her team as they neared the massive vessel. "Remember, we need their command core intact." The Vordax ship's defenses were formidable, but over the past 2 years humans had learned their weaknesses. Grace's team had studied every detail of Vordax ship design from previous raids and intelligence operations. They docked at a maintenance port bypassing the main hangars. Security. Once inside, they moved quickly through the ship's corridors, neutralizing the skeleton crew left aboard. In the ship's command center, Grace accessed the main computer while her team secured the area. "Downloading data now," she reported over the secure channel to the Resilience. "You were right, General. It's all here. The entire history of the Council's decisions regarding Earth, including the original intelligence assessments." The files revealed the truth. The Vordax had been manipulating Council opinion for decades, fearing eventual competition from emerging species. Earth had been targeted, not because humans were dangerous, but because the Vordax had seen humanity's potential to grow into a rival power. Dr. Olivia Grant had never expected to return to Council space as a free person. Now she sat beside Ben Foster, Earth's chief negotiator on the neutral planet Altaris. Across from them sat representatives from 12 council species, including the reformed council leadership. "The evidence is clear," said Jexnar, the elderly Solari who had tried to advocate for humans years before. "The Vordax deliberately manipulated information presented to the council. They fabricated threats and orchestrated incidents to push us toward war." The new High Counselor, an Arxian named Trelva, nodded her blue-skinned head. "The council acknowledges its failure to properly investigate these claims before taking military action. We bear responsibility for the suffering caused." Ben Foster spoke carefully. "Earth appreciates this acknowledgement. Now we must discuss how to move forward." The Krell representative leaned forward. "We expected humans to demand significant reparations and territory as compensation. Your preliminary terms are unexpected." Olivia smiled slightly. This was the reaction they had anticipated. The human terms had surprised everyone. Rather than demanding land or resources, humans primarily sought guarantees of autonomy and inclusion in galactic governance on equal terms. "Humans don't want to dominate," Ben explained. "We want to participate. The old council structure allowed manipulation by powerful members. We propose a new system with better checks and balances." "Some will say you are being too generous given your current military advantage," observed a Metrax representative. "We didn't fight this war to conquer," Ben replied. "We fought to survive and then to secure our place among the stars. Revenge is not our goal." Olivia added, "Besides, the longer this conflict continues, the more everyone loses. Peace benefits all our species." On Earth, President Lucy Chen addressed the United Nations General Assembly. Behind her, a large screen showed images from the peace conference on Altaris. 2 years ago, the council claimed humans feared war. Then it began, she said to the gathered representatives. They were right about one thing. We did fear war, but not because we longed to start one. We feared it because we understood its terrible cost. She gestured to the screens showing scenes of reconstruction across Earth cities. "We have paid that cost. Millions of lives lost. Cities destroyed. Yet today I can announce that a preliminary peace agreement has been reached." Applause erupted from the assembly. "The Vordax leadership has been removed from power by their own people," Lucy continued when the noise subsided. "The Krell, discovering they were manipulated by their Vordax allies, have signed a separate peace treaty with Earth and offered technological assistance with our reconstruction efforts." She looked around at the representatives of Earth's nations. "Most importantly, the old Galactic Council is being dissolved. In its place will rise the Interstellar Cooperative, a new organization where all species, including humanity, will have equal representation and rights." Captain Samuel Wright stood before the assembled delegates of the new Interstellar Cooperative. As humanity's first representative to the new galactic governing body, he felt the weight of history on his shoulders. 3 years ago, I commanded the ship that made first contact with the Council," he began. "That day marked the beginning of a misunderstanding that led to tragic consequences for all our peoples." The vast chamber was silent as representatives from 23 spacefaring species listened. "Humans were judged by our history of conflict," Samuel continued. "The Council feared what we might become, not understanding that our experiences with war had taught us to value peace all the more deeply." He looked around at the alien faces, some familiar from battle, others new allies, all now potential partners. "The war proved that humans can fight when necessary. But in peace, we hope to show you something more important, that humans excel at building, creating, and cooperating. We bring not just our technology or our resources to this cooperative, but our diversity of thought, our adaptability, and our determination to build a better future for all." As Samuel concluded his address, the chamber erupted in the various sounds that constituted applause among the different species. A new era had begun. On a newly established diplomatic colony world, children from Earth played alongside young Arxians, Solari, Krell, and even a few Vordax. They built sand structures together, learning each other's languages and customs without the prejudices of their elders. Dr. Olivia Grant watched them from a bench beside Jexnar, the Solari historian who had first spoken in humanity's defense. "They adapt to each other so naturally," Jexnar observed. No fear, no suspicion. Olivia nodded. Children haven't learned to fear differences yet. Perhaps that is humanity's greatest strength, the old alien mused. Not your technology or your fighting capability, but your ability to adapt, to change, to grow beyond your past. We're all capable of that, Olivia replied, watching as a human girl showed an Arxian child how to build a sandcastle. That's the real lesson of this war. We can all become better than our histories suggest. In the distance, a new cooperative vessel lifted off, its crew a mix of species working together.